A History of the World in 6 Classes project. Chapter 10, Tea.
Standage makes a lot of arguments in this chapter. In one of them, he disagrees with a lot of historians. Historians claim that tea originated in China. However, he disagrees and says that it actually was extracted from the Chinese-India border,
Which is this area right here.
and brought to China by Buddhist monks. One argument that he said is that China did, however, contribute a lot to the spread of tea, due to trade in the capital, which was in modern Cheyenne.
In this image, we could see the Silk Road, which was used in order to export the tea from China.
They allowed tea to reach Japan in the 6th century and England in 1580. Another claim that Standage made was that tea had a lot of economic influence on China. It actually became a currency because of how much it was used.
A cause and effect relationship found in the book was that tea increased the population of China. This is because the boiling of water killed waterborne diseases, which decreased the child mortality rate.
The novel also mentions about the height of the British industrialism being dependent on tea. Tea supported workers and laborers with a silver refreshment, which essentially boosted a demand for imports. Tea was imported from the East India Company, which ultimately led to the British Tea Act, causing the American colonies to respond with the Boston Tea Party. The novel focuses on the conflict with China restricting certain trade routes. With the British victory, it provided superiority, with China being humiliated. Finally, the chapter explains the relations to the tea production of the Assam Tea Company.
One quote that really reflects the importance of tea comes from the Chinese rule book. It says, "Better to be deprived of food for 3 days than of tea for 1."
Another quote comes from this man in which he says, "We urge every man, every woman to drink tea every day, if possible every hour." He goes on to recommend up to 200 cups as an upper limit per day. Needless to say that this statement increased tea sales and reflects the significance of tea at the time.
In Betnet.com, Domenico Bettinelli says that the Chinese stranglehold on tea production and insistence on Westerners buying it with silver led to the creation of the opium trade from India that eventually destabilized China in the 19th century. In Bloomsbury.com, the author states that hundreds of years after the Chinese began drinking tea, it became especially popular in Britain with far-reaching effects on British foreign policy. In BernieGurley.com, the author states that ultimately Britain's tea addiction led to the growing of tea in India to make an end run around the volatile relations with China.
Tom Standage is the author of A History in the World in 6 Classes, as well as 5 other history books, some of them being Writing on the Wall, Social Media, The First 2,000 Years, and the Victorian Internet. He is a deputy officer at The Economist and oversees strategy and output on digital platforms, including apps, the web, and social media. He also lives in London with his wife and children. His inspiration for writing this book was a newspaper article about Napoleon, which talked about his favorite wine being Vin de Constance, a very popular wine in the 19th century. He then went to the original vineyard and talked with the winemaker about the wine and how they started making the wine again and drank some. After this, he started to think about the various drinks historical figures drink, and from there he began researching the different drinks that were popular at different time periods. His interest in the various drinks of different time periods may have affected the way he wrote the book, because he might have glorified the drinks and their significance to history as a whole.
Standage's style of writing is unorthodox compared to other books, and he takes a creative approach to covering the topic. The things Standage writes are very complex, enough to have been able to fill 3 or 4 more times than when he does write, according to Smithsonian. And this is good, as the simplified books are easier to comprehend, and while still being, according to Smithsonian, colorful, smooth, and wonderfully engaging.
Although there are praise towards the author in the book, there is also criticism. According to Smithsonian, the writing is too simple and the author focuses too much on Europe and not other parts of the world. Another critique about Standage's novel is that, as stated by Domenico Bettinelli in the article Book Review, A History of the World in 6 Classes, water is mentioned towards the end of Standage's novel as a beverage and is not as important because water has been in the world since life has started.